Jim McCue from SportStars magazine. I'm here with Pete Saco, the outgoing Sac-Joaquin Section Commissioner. Pete is just the third commissioner in the section since it was formed in 1942, and he oversaw the growth of the Sac-Joaquin Section from 115 schools to 195 schools and from 3 divisions to the current 7-division format during his 21 years that he was there. Mr. Saco also instituted several programs, awards, scholarships, and established the Sac-Joaquin Section Hall of Fame. And he was also instrumental in the creation of the CIF State Bowl games to determine the state football champion. And first of all, just thank you so much for welcoming us into your home and for sharing some time with us tonight, Pete.
Thank you, Jim. It's my honor to have you guys here tonight.
When you first took on the job of Section Commissioner, did you envision that you'd be in the job for as long as you have been?
That's a great question. I really had no idea. Really had no idea what I was getting myself involved with, and I really had no idea where my career was going to go at that time.
What accomplishments during your tenure as commissioner bring you the greatest satisfaction or joy?
Well, you know, we accomplished a lot, Jim, and first of all, I worked for a great board of managers, which represents the 27 leagues. But I think the expansion and the growth of our section was a huge accomplishment. I don't think people really understand that, you know, at one point we're 125, 130 schools. We grew a little bit in the late 90s, and then about 2002, 2003, when we had the huge growth spurt, we actually added, if I'm not mistaken, 20 schools within 3 years. So there was an explosion, and we went from 3 divisions to 4 divisions to 5 divisions to the current 7 divisions. So as I look back, that was an absolutely huge accomplishment, just the growth, because it's all about kids. It's all about kids winning championships and handing them a banner and handing them their patch, and that's, you know, really what it's all about. But other accomplishments, the Hall of Fame, something I always wanted to do, and Will DeBoard has helped make that happen. Our office, we built a brand new office from scratch, and we bought the property. The schools, our member schools bought the property, but I initiated it. You know, we laid plans, our board approved it, and we're able to put a new building in place, which is great for our membership. So now we have a home. It's in Lodi. Our meetings are there, and it's really the home of our section. I think the scholarship program we've put together is by far, I think, one of the best, you know, if not in the United States, on the West Coast. We have foundation basketball games and volleyball games, and 50% of that money goes toward the scholarships. And plus, we have sponsors: Crystal Creamery, Les Schwab, CSEA is a big sponsor of that. So the last 5 or 6 years now, we've given out $35,000 to $40,000 in scholarships, and then we're able to bring the kids together, bring their parents together, have a breakfast, have them recognized, and there's no greater joy than seeing one of my reps put a medal around a young man or young lady's neck and have mom and dad cry, share a tear. So it's all good, and that's really a result of our member schools supporting it. And I want to acknowledge our officials. They've helped make that work because they donate their time for the foundation games. So those are a couple of the section accomplishments. I think when we look statewide, our big push for football, which is a story into itself, was a tremendous accomplishment, and hopefully that will even expand more in the years to come.
Do you have any regrets or decisions that you wish that you had a chance to reconsider?
Do I have any regrets? No, I think sometimes you maybe you'd like to take a different look at some eligibility decisions you made in certain situations, but not really. I think the great advantage to this job is when you're a basketball coach, which I was, you have 45 seconds to make a decision in between a timeout. And some of those I regret when we came out of a timeout. As commissioner, you know, you could sit on it for a day, even a week, you know, work with your board, work with key people. So I can't really say I have.
What was the most difficult part of being commissioner?
The most difficult part of being commissioner is the enforcement of our rules. You know, I live and breathe our Constitution and bylaws, and this day and age, specifically in the last 5 to 7 years, we have a lot of new principals and new athletic directors. 25% of our principals and ADs rotate every year now. So we're constantly training people. And there's a misperception out there about our rules. You know, sometimes people don't understand them. So here I'm in the office trying to enforce a rule, and then you have to explain it not only to mom and dad, but to the principal and the athletic director sometimes doesn't quite know it. But it has to happen, but it can be difficult at times.
Okay. What was the most rewarding aspect of being section commissioner? You talk about putting the ribbons around kids' necks. And
Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny. It's probably why I got into this line of work. I date myself back to when I was in college as a recreation leader at a park, but I get great joy in running tournaments and running an event. And, you know, you could take a look at our football or basketball, or it could be a sport that isn't as high profile. It could be a water polo, or it could be a tennis. But watching the tournament come to fruition, watching it play out, seeing the games played, seeing the finals played. I mean, let's talk football or basketball, being it whether it's Sleep Train or Sac State or the early part of my tenure at University of Pacific, and watching that game come together, play that game, have the award ceremony, and see it was played fairly and it was done the way we wanted it done.
are there any particular athletes or coaches that have a special place with you, or particular events that stand out during your time as section commissioner?
Yeah, you know, there's a couple. I think you got to go back to, you really have to take a look at even what's happened beyond our section, but Mike Albergini's team that won the state 2008, 2009, that whole issue and getting them in that game and what they did in their game with Long Beach Poly, scoring in the fourth quarter was a great win. I think the Escalon team that with Mark Lorero, who is being inducted in our Hall of Fame this August, Mark and his dad both are, and him winning that game against I think Madison of San Diego, and then coming home and having a big party in the street at midnight. I mean, that's really what this is all about. You know, we talk about small town football. Well, there was small town football at midnight. You know, as Mark describes it, I wasn't there, but a big party in the street as the team rolled up. We've been blessed with a lot of great coaches. You know, I mean, they come and they go, but we've had solid coaches. Obviously, person that's very important to me was a young man I coached, Todd Reiswig. He was at Elk Grove High School and got the job when I started here in '93 as commissioner, and in '95 or '96 he won the section championship. Probably no greater joy than shaking his hand and grabbing a hug with him when I had to give him the banner. So, yeah, there's more than that, but those are just a couple of the moments that are pretty important.
A lot of attention on concussions and athletes. Is there anything that you look back and say, could we have done more, or that you wish you could have done more with that, or do you think that you did everything you guys could do with kind of the sensitive topics like that?
Well, I think you could never do enough. I think that's a fair assessment. The problem really becomes it's the resources we have to perform our jobs. You know, we can enforce as many rules as we want, but the enforcement of those rules and making sure the schools enforce them is a very difficult situation. And you can use concussions as a perfect example. We can say anything we want this and we want that done, but ultimately it rests in the schoolhouse to get that work done. You know, I probably maybe I would have wished I could have given more time to talking to parents, parent group meetings. We have a presentation that we make, and I probably made it about a dozen times, but I probably could have been out every night of the week talking to different schools about the importance of high school athletics. It's educational based athletics. It's important, don't get me wrong. But it has its part in the education system, no different than science and math. You know, at our section finals in basketball, we meet with the captains and the coaches and the administrators before every final. And I make the comment to them, I said, you don't trash talk in math and science. At least you're not supposed to. And so let's not do it on the basketball court. You know, let's let the game play out, respect the game, and I think everybody will be better. I think we as an organization will need to continue to work on that for many, many years to come.
You were a visionary for the California high school football games. What was that process of creating the state football games like? And do you believe that there's room for the format to still grow and to be tweaked?
That's a great question. You know, and I don't remember the exact year. I want to say it was 2001 or 2002. I was at a state federated council meeting in San Diego. And the whole issue of state playoffs came up, and somebody was saying, well, we'll never have state football playoffs. And so after the meeting, John Williams, my longtime assistant, and I went out and we stayed an extra day, and we went and played golf with our president at the time, Charlie Berger, who was in San Juan School District. So I said to Charlie, we can have state football. It can happen, but it's got to be put in writing and somebody's got to make it happen. And Charlie looked at me and said, then let's do it. So, it took us a year to write the proposal up because I had to get the support of my board to take us forward. It wasn't, I had a vision, but my board had their own rules in terms of one of them being, we don't care what you take forward, Pete, but we don't want to lose any of our 10 regular season games. So that was the first hurdle that we had. So it took a while. I think once it was put on the table, there were some people, I think they kind of laughed at us. They didn't think it would ever happen. And I remember telling John, we're just going to hold the line and we're going to let's just see where this goes. And it didn't have every section support, but it had enough support to pass. And now I notice when we go in the rooms to pick the teams, all the sections want to go. So obviously it has worked. Does it have a chance to expand? Absolutely, Jim. We're in the middle right now of proposing an expansion of state football. As it currently is, we have 5 divisions right now. We have the open, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you recall, one time it was just we picked one team and we played one team in the South. Then we went to the regional concept. And, we've had different games the week before, and then the 2 teams play for the state championship. What we have put on the table, I put out there last year, and it's in the process right now of being reviewed by people, is that every section winner gets to go to a bowl game, a state championship game. So you may ask, well, is it extra weeks? No, but instead of there being 5 state championship games, there might be 12. So I think we have it down to 24 teams in the north and 24 in the south. So when we go into that room and we select the teams, we'd have 24 teams. We'd have to bracket them according to enrollment, maybe tweak them a little bit based on competitive equity. And then we'd have 12 games in the north and 12 games in the South. Following week, there'll be 12 state championship games, and this is what I think is really, really critical. One of the things I think is really good about this is it would be in 4 different parts of the state. So there'd be 3 games in Sacramento, and this is just what my vision is. 3 in Sacramento, maybe 3 in the Bay Area, 3 in Fresno, and 3 in LA. And then where those games would be based on how the state wanted to place those games. So if you take a look at that concept, what it really boils down to is the kids are going to decide who wins and loses on the field, not adults. We've been through that, and that's not a lot of fun. So with this, everybody gets a chance.
Right. On that same topic, take us inside a football bowl selection meeting. Did the debates ever get heated with the 10 section commissioners fighting for their schools to be represented in the championship games? And how did you go about preparing yourself to fight for Sac-Joaquin section teams in the state selection meetings?
Yes, it does get heated. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think what everybody needs to realize, I work with 9 great colleagues, and we're not going to pull the wool over each other's eyes. We all come into that meeting, and you had better be prepared, or you won't survive. And I tried to, when I went in, if I did not think there were schools from our section that would qualify because of maybe who they had lost to, I would tell the coach after the section final, say, you've had a great year, but I don't see there's any way I can get you into this game. I just don't have any ammunition. Maybe your schedule wasn't strong enough. Maybe there's another team that's better. It depends on the situation. But I always tried to go in with about 5 or 6 different points, and I had John Williams on my side, and we prepared. And I remember the time that we got Escalon in, when I talked about them and them winning it. They were up against, I think, Marin Catholic. Marin Catholic obviously has a great program, and we went in and we held back a little ammunition and waited until the right times to introduce it. That one and probably the Grant one was the biggest debate for us in terms of getting people in. I think we've been treated very fair by everybody. I think our teams that deserved to get in got in. Sometimes they didn't get in. It was unfortunate. I know one year Vacaville didn't get in. Del Oro did get in. That was not a lot of fun for me because I had to share that with the Vacaville people. I think with this new proposal, Vacaville would get to go too. And so with DeLauro, it's a win-win for everybody.
What are the most important attributes to be section commissioner?
You better have a thick skin. What decision you make, some people are going to be unhappy. I always use the adage that when I make a decision, I have 50% happy and 50% unhappy. The same problem, a second decision, I now have 25% happy and 75% unhappy. So when they tell me that President Obama has got a 50% rating, it's great, because on two decisions I only have 25%. So you would better understand right from the very start that you're not going to make a lot of people happy. You have to make sure that you follow what your rules state and what the intent of what you're trying to accomplish, and follow that and stay on that path, and be willing to withstand people that are unhappy, because there are going to be people unhappy with decisions you make.
How do you want to be remembered by athletic directors, coaches, parents, and administrators, and observers for your time as section commissioner?
Probably that I was fair. I tried to look out for our student athletes when I could. I think my goal was always, let's make the student eligible when we can. Now, some people would debate, well, you couldn't do that all the time. Absolutely not, I couldn't do it all the time. But the biggest goal, my goal was always to make the student athlete eligible, to try to make as fair as a level playing field as possible. It's not always possible to do it, I get that, I clearly do. But to try to give the kids the best experience. If in 20 years from now, some student athlete that played during my tenure can say, what a great experience I had at Sleep Train, or at Sac State, or at Wood Creek in the water polo finals, then you know what, it's worked.
So you spent many years in California high schools as a teacher, coach, and administrator. Tell us about your greatest influences that brought you into education and into athletics.
Well, there's three people really affected my life. One was my dad. There's a lot of stories about my dad, but he had a tremendous effect on my life. And make a long story short, there was a story that popped up, and he put his fingers in my chest and he said, "You make sure you always do what is right, not what is popular. Always do what is right, not what is popular." I had that kind of written on my desk. And a lot of times you have to make some tough decisions. You have to do what is right, and it's not the most popular thing. So that's number one. My dad, without question, was probably the most important person. Second is my wife. She's my best friend and my toughest critic. Been married for 35 years, and she could pat me on the back, and then 10 minutes later, be right in my face, tell me things that I could do better. So I really appreciated that. And thirdly, my high school basketball coach, who, I met him when I was 15 years old, and his name was Rene Herrerius. He was the head coach at the University of California at Berkeley. He was Pete Newell's assistant. Then he was the head coach there in the 60s, and left there when the riots broke out, and came to where I went to high school at El Camino High School in South San Francisco. And it was spent a couple weeks ago. It's up here for a couple days. 88 years old now. Tremendous influence. Just here again, I think it was enforcing the same things that weren't being enforced in my house the whole time. Was do what is right, not what is popular, and you won't have any problems. And I think the biggest thing for me, Jim, was I went to El Camino High School in South San Francisco. Great education. I had great coaches, great teachers. I loved going to school. I was 8 years old. I wanted to be a high school coach. And I never wanted to know if I wanted to be a commissioner, but that's where it evolved.
How will you spend your time in retirement beyond helping out with the CIF state office, and is it going to be hard to keep you away from high school sports?
I think anybody that just is kidding themselves that they think you can just walk away. It will be difficult at times. I think with my involvement with the state, I'll be involved with state basketball. I know I'll be involved with golf and doing some things in other sports as well. And I think there's other options that are going to avail themselves within the CIF for me to stay involved. I don't want to be an individual that is forced out. Somebody once told me it's great to retire and be invited back to the parties instead of being sent away and never told when the parties are going to occur. So it's been a great run. you know, we're still young enough, we have our health, we're going to travel, we're going to go to Italy here in a couple months. So I think the state office will tap into me, and I think we'll find a happy medium somewhere between that and golf and some cards and some other stuff. I think I'll have plenty to do.
What advice would you give or have you given to Mike Garrison, the incoming Sac-Joaquin Section Commissioner and your successor?
Mike will be fine. You know, he comes from a strong administrative background. And he's been through all the chairs. He's been our president, our past president. He's chaired different committees, so he's seen it. But I think I've also tried to explain to Mike, it's not like the Rockland community. He's now overseeing 200 high schools. And here again, he's going to have to make some decisions. He needs to go in and he needs to get his feet on the ground and stay focused and think about the decisions he makes, get the right advice from people, make it and live with it, and then move on. And he'll be okay, but he will be tested. I'm not going to make any bones about it. People are going to, you know, say, well, Pete's not around anymore. Maybe we can get away with this and get away with that. So he may get pushed a little bit. He'll have to find his comfort zone and do what's best for him.
All right, well, thanks so much for having us tonight, Pete, and for sharing your insights and your experience in all your years in high school education and sports in the Sac-Joaquin section. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Jim, for coming over the house, and really appreciate you having over.